Hello and welcome to the third video in your 24/7 prayer series. In the first video we looked at drawing closer to God. In the second one, drawing closer to each other in the church. And in this one, drawing closer to your community. In many ways this is the video that challenges us most at a personal level, which really begins to explore a call God may put upon our life. Let's begin with a reading from Ephesians chapter 4.
So then, this is my appeal to you. Yes, it's me, the prisoner in the Lord. You must live up to the calling you received. Bear with one another in love. Be humble, meek, and patient in every way with one another. Make every effort to guard the unity that the Spirit gives, with your lives bound together in peace. There is one body and one Spirit. You were, after all, called to one hope, which goes with your call. There is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, through all, and in all. But grace was given to each one of us according to the measure the King used when he was distributing gifts. That's why it says, when he went up on high, he led bondage itself into bondage, and he gave gifts to people. When it says here that he went up, what this means is that he also came down into the lower place that is the earth. The one who came down is the one who also went up, yes, above all the heavens, so that he might fill all things. So these were the gifts that he gave. Some were to be apostles, others prophets, others evangelists, and others pastors and teachers. Their job is to give God's people the equipment they need for their work of service, and so to build up the King's body. The purpose of this is that we should all reach unity in our belief and loyalty, and in knowing God's Son. Then we shall reach the stature of the mature man, measured by the standards of the King's fullness. As a result, we won't be babies any longer.
One of the wonderful things about that reading is the way in which it turns on its head, really, our understanding of the gifts that God gives. We often think that God gives gifts of prophecy and gifts of teaching and gifts of healing, and that is true. But in this particular passage, Paul makes it very clear that the gifts he gives are not the gift of preaching, but the preacher themselves, not the gift of teaching, but the teacher themselves, not the gift of prophecy, but the prophet themselves. The gift is the person. And the wonderful thing about God is that he thinks very carefully about his gifts. I don't know if you do when it comes to Christmas time and birthdays, whether you think very carefully about the gifts you're going to give. If you love the people, you think extra carefully. I know that when it comes to my wife or my grandchildren or even my closest friends, I really rack my brains and search the internet or the shops when I'm allowed to for the perfect gift. And that's what God does with us. He looks at the people he loves, and in your case it's Melton Mowbray, the town of Melton Mowbray. He looks at this town and loves this town and thinks, what is the best gift I could give to this town filled with people that I love? And the answer is you. The answer is you. God has chosen you as a gift to your community. Knowing who you are, what your talents are, what your passions are, the kind of temperament you have, the person you are and you will be. God has seen you and knows you are the perfect fit for this place at this time. So in this video, as we pray and reflect together, we will be exploring what it means to be God's gift to our community, individually and as a church. So now, as the music plays, think about that and what it might mean for you to be a gift to Melton as a church and as an individual. So here's a Bible reading. This is a version done with a friend of mine from Ashby Baptist Church, which we've created together. It's a well-known story and one of many stories in which Jesus meets the needs of his community. It's the feeding of the 5,000.
It had been another long day of smiling and making a sale. My mum bakes barley loaves and my dad's a fisherman, so my job is to go out and sell them for the best price I can get. Mum's loaves are actually pretty legendary. People seek me out to get them whilst they're still warm in the morning. Apparently they're the best around, although my mate John says his mum's are better. Anyway, it was getting late. I only had 5 loaves and 2 fish left, so I was beginning to think about knocking down the price a bit so I could get home. Thing is, I always feel bad if I do that. Dad says he doesn't spend all of his time in a boat just to have me go and give fish away for next to nothing, and he's right. So I put on my best smile and tried to find someone who looked like they needed to sneakily eat something extra before they got home. Just as I spotted a likely candidate, this man came running up to me. Fantastic, I thought, he wants my food. Home time it is. But when I say that's half a denarius for the lot, he tells me that he hasn't got any money, but that I must come with him instead. Since my likely candidate was already long gone, I decided to follow him, in case he was with someone who actually did have some money. As we walked along, I began to hear the sound of a large crowd of people. The nearer we got, the more bustling conversation I could hear. We turned a corner, and that's when I see the largest crowd I've ever seen. The man with no money walks with me through the sea of people to this other man, who introduces himself to me as Jesus. Jesus. I thought I'd heard his name mentioned recently. He had the kindest eyes. He asked me if I would give him everything I had. Whilst I really wanted to get home, I didn't want to go home short, so Jesus must have read my mind. He looked at me in the eyes and said my parents would understand, and I believed him. I gave him the basket. I watched as Jesus prayed and thanked God for my loaves and fish, and then his friends went around offering the food to all those people. There must have been thousands of them. Each person took plenty to eat. They must have been really hungry. Then it dawned on me, the food wasn't running out. The more people took, the more food seemed to be left. I looked over to Jesus. He was sitting on the ground helping to feed a toddler, whilst her mum had some dinner herself. He looked up, caught my eye and smiled. I smiled back, and then I just ran home. I couldn't wait to tell Mum and Dad what was going on. I didn't want them to miss this amazing sight. I knew it would be the talk of the town tomorrow, and it was my loaves, my fish he had used. I was right. The next day everyone was still talking about it. I get to hear all the gossip as we walk through town. Apparently there had been 12 baskets of food left over. 12! Loads more than there was to start with. Another strange thing happened that day too. I had such a good day selling loaves and fish. Everyone was in such a good mood. They were all, "Keep the change, son." It more than made up for what I'd given to Jesus the day before. Jesus. I'll never forget him. The man with kind eyes.
That story, plus another story which we find probably most appropriately in Luke's Gospel, the story of blind Bartimaeus, are really key. Particularly in the story of Bartimaeus, Jesus, going into Jericho, is confronted with this blind man and asks a very simple question. What is it that you need? And obviously the man, Bartimaeus, wants to see and so says to Jesus, I want to see again. And Jesus meets that need and heals his sight. In the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus doesn't ask the thousands of people what they need. His disciples, looking at the state of the people, the situation they're in, tells Jesus, these people need to be fed. They're hungry, they're tired, they need sustenance. And Jesus meets that need. If we are a gift, and the gift we are is also a presence of Jesus in our community, then we need to be like Jesus and meet needs. It's going to be quite a long time now to reflect on your community. There'll be photographs from Melton and surrounding areas. And whilst these photos are being shown and the music is playing, ask God to speak to you and reveal to you, as you look, like he revealed to those disciples, what are the needs of Melton. You might have to ask people, but what are the needs? And then think further, how can we meet them? Going back to that story of Bartimaeus, Have you ever wondered why Bartimaeus shouted out for Jesus? He could have been anybody walking by, could have been a celebrity of some kind. But actually, Bartimaeus shouted out because he knew the reputation of Jesus as a person who showed love, as a person who did miracles, as a person who didn't mind associating with the poor and the disabled and the outcast, those on the fringes of society. And because he knew Jesus did not turn people away, that's why he felt confident to cry out. What is the reputation of your church? What do people think when your church's name is mentioned? Do they think great preaching, great teaching, great worship, good coffee after the service? Those good things, of course. Or do they think there is a church that is just like Jesus, who understands our needs and meets them? Spend some time now and maybe jot some notes down in your journal or your notebook. What is your church's reputation? And how like Jesus are you in the community you serve?
Would I climb up a tree, the face of Christ to see? Would I look like a fool, receive a life made new? You hung up on a tree to give yourself for me, wealthy and unashamed. You name my broken ways. Sisters and brothers, I'm sorry. Forgive me for my silence. Systems maintained by privilege, not seeing my compliance. Would I give up my wealth, risk my safety and health? Would I look like a fool, give all I have for you? You made your riches small to give yourself for all. Exiled to Bethlehem, crucified by humans. Sisters and brothers, I'm sorry. Forgive me for my silence, how I have held on to my pride. How can I give to you my life? You gave for all black lives, you gave for refugees, you gave for LGBT, you set prisoners free, you welcome in the poor, you open every door, you bring down every wall. would I climb up a tree to see the bound made free.
Our closing worship song is a brand new song, really, and I'm sorry it's a little bit messy. It was written by Andy Flanagan to go with the boat meditation that some of you will have seen me do before. It's an amazing song, so forgive the clunkiness of it because it had only just been written when we recorded it on Zoom, and listen to the prophetic call of God as he says to the church, you're not made for the harbour, you're made for the sea.
We are not made for the harbour, we are made for the sea. Though at times it's wild and cold and dark, it's where we're meant to be. You launch us out as a father, though we may be tossed about, but your presence in the storm, it walls us in and calls us out. You left the harbour of heaven for the elements of earth. This God left unmovable. Your gaze is holding the horizon where that heaven brushes earth, so this born world is transformed. You ain't, words are fine, don't worry. We are not made for the harbor, we are made for the sea. Though at times it's wild and cold and dark, it's where we're meant to be. You launch us out as a father, though we may be tossed about, but your presence in the storm, it calls us in, calls us out. You left the harbor of heaven for the elements of earth. You left the harbor of heaven for the elements of this God left vulnerable. This God left vulnerable. Your gaze is holding the horizon. Gaze is holding the horizon where this heaven brushes earth. So this worn world is transformed. We are not made for the harbor. We are made for the sea. Though at times it's wild and cold and dark, it's where we're meant to be. You launch us out as a father, though we may be tossed about, but your presence in the storm, it walls us in and calls us out. You send us out to the market, send us out to the field as your hope ambassador. We take no purse for the journey, but take your authority to declare that all is yours. We are not made for the harbor, we are made for the sea. Oh, it's time it's wild and cold and dark, it's where we're meant to be. You launch us out as a father, though we may be tossed about, but your presence in the storm, it walls us in and calls us out. Out to the factory, bring in your spark. Out to the office, leave in your mark. Out to the school gates and out to the bars. May we risk what was never ours. We are not made for the harbor, we are made for the sea. Though it's time is wild and cold and dark, it's where we're meant to be. You launch us out as a father, though we may be tossed about. Know your presence in the storm, it calls us in and calls us out. Last time, let's hear it. We are not made for the harbor, we are made for the sea. Though inside it's wild and cold and dark, it's where we're meant to be. You launch us out as a fighter, though we may make tossed about. But your presence in the storm, it calls us safe and calls us